to this week's Facebook Live on the Karma Canine Cooperative. My name's Colin Scriven. I'm a dog listener on the forum, and I'm with Ali Carrington, who you probably recognise for her responding to your comments, and she's both a dog listener and a Reiki master, and I'm going to be talking with her today about dog listening and Reiki. So, you may have met me before on one of the other podcasts. I've been a dog listener for about, 9 or 10 years, and I have a social enterprise where I take my dog Jen into school working with the kids, and I either teach dog listening to the kids, or we have various other programs, reading programs and dog safety and things like that. So that's a bit about me. I'd like to say hello to Ali and ask you to introduce yourself as well, please.
Sure, thanks, Colin. Hello, everyone. I'm Ali, and actually, do you know, Colin and I were on our first, and I think we were on our foundation and advanced dog listening course together, weren't we, Colin? So it's about 10 years for both of us when we first started. And so since my family, my husband and the dogs and I have made a bit of a change recently. We've moved out of West London, where we've been for 20 years or so. So I now live mostly in Mid Sussex and a little bit in central London. I am the proud guardian of Chili and Ludo, who keep me learning and laughing. And yes, like Colin said, I'm a dog listener and I'm also a Reiki teacher or Reiki master, specializing in animals. And then, of course, even more so specializing in teaching Reiki with dogs.
Thank you. I'm just trying to keep all these windows open. It's a bit like sort of a system control here.
Do you feel like you're on a spaceship?
Yeah. Okay, so Ali, I was just going to find out, with you having both sort of hats, what came first, dog listening or Reiki?
Absolutely, dog listening came first. And it was Chili who brought me down that path, because I did a number of things innocently wrong with her in the early days. And it was her behavior that led me to look for something else. And I couldn't be more grateful to Chili for so many things, but particularly for bringing me to dog listening, because it absolutely changed my life in fundamental ways. And I just go back to what I said about being innocently wrong, because something that I say to the people that I work with, there's a lot of emotions that come from learning that we might be doing things wrong with our dogs. I certainly went through that. But we're innocent. We're getting it wrong innocently because that's what we know at the time. And for me, that's what I knew at the time, and things had been fine for other dogs in my life. It was just that Chili came along and said, I think we need to do something differently here. Then we adopted senior boy Kenny, who had a gazillion issues, behaviorally and medically. And so it was Kenny who he provided, along with Jan Fennell and Tony Knight, Kenny was my advanced dog listening teacher. And it was Kenny who also took me to Reiki.
Yeah.
Shall I tell you about how that happened now, or do you want to know what Reiki is, maybe?
Good question. Well, yes, I just want to say a quick hello to Kate and Natalia, who are watching.
Hello, Kate. Hi, Nata. Nata from Switzerland. Bonjour, ma chérie.
Well, hey, breaking out here.
And hello, Kate.
Yeah. We've got people watching us. We're famous at last. We're talking out to the ether and no one's listening. It's terrible.
Have you told your mum to watch you on this column?
It'll be too confusing for her. She's not even part of the group, so I'm not even going to go there.
Oh.
But yes, good point there. I'll do a shout out for my mum. Hello, mum, but I know you will. So yeah, please do. What is Reiki?
Yeah, it's quite a good question, isn't it? I do wonder if it changes every time I talk about it. But I think most people who have heard of it have probably heard of it described as an energy healing modality. So it's a practice that promotes self-healing and healing in others. It was originally developed in Japan, and it was taught back then, and it's not changed. It's still taught as a system, as a practice with different elements to learn, such as breathing techniques, meditation, visualization practices, all designed for the practitioner to be at their most peaceful. And this is the key, really. So when you're at your most peaceful, your body and your mind are in a state that is a peaceful state. I personally like to describe it as the healing state. So it's basically the opposite of fight-flight state. When you're full of adrenaline and ready to survive, the healing state actually allows the body to rest, recuperate, and heal. So the more you study Reiki, the more you're going to be able to feel this lovely healing energy. You're going to be able to also feel that you can almost pass this beautiful healing energy on. So that could be with someone that you're with, or it can absolutely be with animals that you're with. And that's where it feels quite magical, this connection that you can feel in that very peaceful meditative state, and feeling that you're connected to another being at that point in time as well. Some people often think of Reiki as a hands-on healing modality, which can be absolutely right. There are sensations of heat that can be felt through the body and through the hands when you practice this system of Reiki, often through the hands. And that can feel really lovely from practitioner to client. So, for example, if I have a client sat in a chair in front of me and I just gently start with my hands on their shoulders, they can often feel the heat that's coming through the palms of my hands. Oh my gosh, it feels so relaxing. It's one of those really relaxing kind of feelings that you get. It stems from a Taoist background, a Buddhist background. So with those origins, there's a lot of the beginning of Reiki learning starts with like a personal development and a spiritual cultivation. And then it moves more towards being able to offer that to others. So I don't know whether that sounds like gobbledygook to some people, probably, but also maybe it speaks to other people. That's just going to be how Reiki is. It's going to speak to some and not to others.
It's interesting you say that, because I remember I did one of your courses last year and it was online. And I think that's the thing that struck me most of all, because in my head, I'd heard about Reiki with people, and it's very much about the hands-on and the heat, the warmth, etc. And whilst I never experienced that, for me, my learning from your course was about connection and listening, and not necessarily about sort of the magical stuff that can go on. And and it was just really the different responses from my dogs. Jenna walked away, whereas Sally came towards me, and that told me, that there was some form of communication going on that they understood.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you felt that it's about listening, and that's, it's kind of bringing dog listening into it, isn't it? That's one of the reasons it resonated with me so much in the first place. Yeah.
Good, thank you. So, how did you get into Reiki then? Because obviously dog listening is one completely side, and it's very practical, and it's very methodical, etc. And Reiki tends to be much more esoterical.
Yeah, so there was a very clear moment when I got into Reiki, and I'm just gonna, where is he? He's up there. Hold on a sec. I can't talk about Reiki.
There will now be a short intermission.
I can't talk about Reiki without talking about this guy. This is Kenny. Oh, what a beautiful soul he has. So he was 10 when he came to us, traumatized soul that he was. And where was he then? He was about 12 and a half, I think. He had, like I said earlier, a few medical issues, and he'd basically come to the end of what our wonderful vets could do with him. Basically, he had a few kind of awkward issues with mast cell tumors and things like that, among other things. But one really distressing thing for him was his vomiting. And he was vomiting every day, and it was really traumatic for him. He was so uncomfortable. You could see it in his eyes. He was really stressed about it. But because he was the age that he was, and he'd already had a rough old life, we'd chosen that we weren't going to do anything too intrusive for him. So, I can't actually remember how I came across Reiki. I really can't. I've tried to rack my brains. I really cannot remember. I just imagine somebody suggested it to me, and my brain thought, okay, that sounds good. But I basically hired a lovely Reiki lady to come round, visit us at the home. Kenny wasn't particularly keen on strangers, so it was really quite noticeable that when she sat down, he came to sit with her, and he came to lie with her, and she just was peaceful. She had a lovely vibe about her, and you could see that he trusted her. She was like this sort of dog magnet, and it was just so beautiful to see him relax into a beautiful snooze, doing these big, expansive, deep breaths. And, isn't it lovely for us all to see our dogs when they're really relaxed like that? It was so, so gorgeous. And so I was like, she's good. Wonder what she's doing for this tricky dog. But then here was the thing, measurably, he didn't vomit again for the next 10 days. So for me, that was such a big deal. So of course I was hooked. What is this magical thing? Let's do more of it. So I got her back a month later. And then I just thought to myself, well, I could, pay and get this person back every so often, or maybe I could just learn it myself. And as, chances, luck, coincidences, we know there might not be any coincidences, would happen. I Googled, there was a class starting the following week just over the river in Barnes. We were in Chiswick at the time. So yeah, that was my beginning into Reiki, was old Kenny dog, showing that for him there was something healing about it.
So that sort of leads naturally on to the next question, that the fact that you were wanting to start working yourself with Kenny, and is Reiki then the same for humans and animals?
Yes and no. So the Reiki itself and the system of learning it is exactly the same. So energy is energy. There's no change in that. But there's a major difference, and there's the differences in the approach. And so when I first started learning, I learnt a non-specific animal Reiki approach, so very sort of human approach. There's two what's called lineages in Reiki. There's the Eastern lineage and the Western lineage. The Western comes a little bit more from the United States. The Eastern is a little bit more true to the original Japanese version. And what happens when you go more on the human side is, of course, we can talk about it. We can verbalize it. We can talk about the effect it has on us and how we're feeling at the time. We can give verbal feedback to the practitioner. And so it is perfectly appropriate for the client to be lying down still or sitting down still, with the practitioner moving around, like I said earlier, placing their hands on the shoulders or the top of the head or on the heart center or something like that, anywhere. And by the way, I must just say at this point, Reiki is a fully clothed practice. It's not like a massage, just in case anyone was interested, was kind of wondering. So it can be hands-on practice, but it's always on clothes. You can also just hover your hands. It doesn't have to be contact. And that's quite a key thing with the difference between human and animal Reiki. And this was the reason that I really wanted to push forward and teach animal Reiki. So with humans, the practitioner moves round the still client. With animals, it's completely the opposite. We have to give them the choice. So with the animal Reiki, the practitioner stays still and allows the animal to choose their interaction with the Reiki, with the practitioner. One of the main reasons for this is we can't have that verbal feedback with animals. We have to allow them to be able to walk away. We have to allow them to use their bodies as communication. How do we know that they want us to touch them? That they want us to touch them with these hot Reiki hands. Quite often they don't, actually. So that, I would say, is the major difference. And I think it gets forgotten a little bit when we study Reiki just from the human perspective. And so that was a big inspiration for me to, start to teach this approach of allowing the animal to choose. There's a wonderful, if anybody wants to start to read about it, there is a wonderful practitioner and founder of a method called the Let Animals Lead method of animal Reiki. She's called Kathleen Prasad, Prasad. She's California based, and she was my major inspiration, a wonderful teacher for me in animal Reiki. So that's somewhere to go if anybody's interested. Animals sometimes, well, we know how sensitive they are. Maybe we sometimes need to be a bit reminded of actually how sensitive they are. They can feel our energy from outside the room. If we think about those times where we are stressed or angry and our dogs don't want to be anywhere near us, right? So, that's just our energy. We haven't really done anything to the dogs to tell them this. They can just feel it. So imagine if we are sitting and getting into our lovely meditative Reiki state, how they can really feel this sort of, I imagine it as almost like the Ready Brek advert, if you're old enough like me to remember that, where you've got a glow around you of beautiful, peaceful, harmonious energy. A dog's going to feel that. And they don't have to be touching us to feel that. We need to give them that choice. Sometimes the touch, like you say, maybe is it Jen that walks away from it for you, Colin? When I was still learning, and I hadn't learnt the animal Reiki approach yet, I was so delighted, and I knew that Chili had a problem. This was years ago. Chili had a little problem that day with her back end, and so I got her to come over to me, and I just had my lovely hot Reiki hands, and I was like, plunk, have some of this, Chili. And she just turned around, she gave me a dirty look, and she walked away and got in her crate. She's just the best teacher. Poor old tolerant Chili dog, waiting for me to catch up throughout her life. So yeah, that's the major difference. I would always say that the animals teach us that we humans focus very much on the hands and about the talking about it. Actually, the animals teach us that it's a full body experience. We have energy throughout our bodies, not just our hands. So it's this mindfulness that our animals teach us.
And it's interesting, you're talking about the difference between the humans and animals. So I'm guessing your first course in Barnes then was a human Reiki course.
Yeah, absolutely. It was mentioned, animals were mentioned. The lovely teacher had a dog that was just peacefully sleeping in the next room, next to the teaching room. So he did talk about offering Reiki from himself to his beautiful greyhound. But there was no mention of the animal getting the choice as much as I make a big deal about it in animal Reiki. And I suppose that's what I love about the combination approach of dog listening and animal Reiki is that it's all about this ultimate respect for their species, for inviting them to cooperate with us, inviting that connection, and then just being peaceful and not heartbroken if it doesn't happen straight away. This Colin, that concept that Debbie was talking about last night in our Human Givens course about delayed gratification. That's kind of what dog listening is. We put the work in and we're patient and we wait for the dogs to see that we're the calm, consistent leader that we're trying to prove ourselves to be. It's the same with animal Reiki. We set ourselves up, we develop this peacefulness and harmony in ourselves. Before we can offer it to our dogs or anyone else, we have to know it ourselves. And our dogs will just be there watching, waiting, and they're going to help us get there. So I love that, the sort of combined approach of patience and species specific and naturalness and cooperation and connection that you get in dog listening and animal Reiki.
So when was the first time you had a sort of a Reiki experience with your dogs then? Because it would appear that first time you're trying to put your hands on and frighten them off. So there must have been a process where...
Well, yeah, I did have that. But meanwhile, Kenny was still around. So he was the sort of basic Reiki teacher, absolutely. So I was able just to sit with him being his older self, a little bit more poorly at the time. And he was very good at teaching me actually where or not he wanted my hands. And he would actually do something with his front leg to say, okay, get off me. It was almost like, striking me away kind of thing. And so instead of doing the big chilly dramatic how dare you and walking away, he would just be, he would show me with a deep breath if I was in the right place, and he would show me by going, get off now, if that was enough. Yeah, quite amazing. The other way that I've had really beautiful experiences is, and these were in the early days as well actually, working with the boxer rescue organizations that I've worked with for a number of years. On occasion, I'm asked to go and meet, check out, assess a dog that's been brought back into kennels because of, behavioral issues that have gone on, either in the foster or the, the newly rehomed family. And rather than go in, pop the dog on the lead, take the dog out of the kennel and see what it can do, what I would always start with is, even sitting outside the kennel to begin with, if the dog wasn't particularly relaxed with people being near them, just sit outside and meditate, offer Reiki, be that peaceful, harmonious presence that that dog might not have had for a while, if ever. And that's a really lovely introduction in terms of a relationship. So I might visit twice, 3 times just to do that with a dog that was having problems. And then he would start to trust me. And then we could start to see, right, okay, let's just understand you a little bit more. By the way, most of the times, the problems were always about a dog's space being invaded, as we all know as dog listeners. But it's lovely to have that opportunity and the confidence in a skill set that I can meditate in a kennel that's going, mad around me, but I'm meditating with a dog either outside or inside their kennel, just offering a little moment of peace. That's pretty glorious to see that happen.
I'd muted my microphone because Jen was scratching on the floor. I didn't want the sounds to be coming through. Yeah, just thinking that I remember Tony has a video working with a rescue dog as well, and that the first few visits he had to the kennel was just sort of sitting outside the kennel with the dog, and get familiarizing himself. So it's interesting that there's crossover as well, and
Yeah.
think
And it's not hard to do that. Although I say that, it can sometimes be hard to do that if our emotions are leading the way. And that's what Reiki and animal Reiki in particular is why it's such a beautiful practice for us as humans, as dog-loving, compassionate humans. It gets us a practice of just allowing that sort of any emotion, just allow it to flow through, but don't let it affect how we are, so that we can offer our best peaceful self to the animal at the time. One of the things that animal Reiki teaches is, even if we're worried about them, or even if we're sad about something else that's happened that's unrelated, it's not going to help them. Those two emotions don't help our dogs. Our dogs are like emotional sponges. They'll pick up on anything. So if we've got a system that we can go back to help us allow those emotions to just flow through us but not affect us, and then not allow us to pass them on to these guys, it can be really, really powerful. And if you are interested in, helping in kennels, a kennel scenario, a rescue sanctuary scenario, can be quite stressful. So actually, one of the things that I've done and will continue to do this year is to offer Reiki to the staff members at kennels and sanctuary, so that they can keep their vibes high, if you see what I mean. If they can keep in that happy, peaceful state, so that they can continue their jobs, not being too ground down by, the emotion of it. So animal Reiki can help. I think animal Reiki actually helps animal loving people more than just Reiki. Learning it from the animal's perspective really helps. And those people who maybe have tried mindfulness practice and never quite got there, or meditation practice and never quite got there, try it with the dogs. Allow them to help you get into that state. Because if we're working in combination and watching how they are, it's just so glorious to notice every so often that, our breathing's in the same pattern. That's nice. Just these quiet moments together. Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, thank you very much. I'm conscious we're sort of coming to the end. I know you're really tight for time.
I am, but if I may, Colm, sorry, I was just looking at my little notes of things that I wanted to just say today. If you don't mind, I've just got one final thing to say. And it kind of does move on from what I was saying about helping in the emotional times. Knowing Reiki for oneself can really help in those difficult times. When we practice with the dogs, with the animals, they're constantly teaching us to be in the moment and see what's good about this moment. And that's mindfulness. What's perfect in the right now. And as many of you know, Chili is not very well. She has bone cancer. We all know we're in the end game. But her positivity is amazing. It's awesome. And my Reiki and meditation practice allows me to allow the sadness and the trauma and the dread to flow. But it really allows me to be my best positive self, which I know is going to help her. And that, I think, is our big serious job when it comes to the end game, isn't it, with our dogs? This is part of the job. This is part of the responsibility of guardianship of dogs, is what happens at the end. And my Reiki practice has really helped me be there in the right state of mind for her. So she teaches me at the start and she teaches me at the end. She's been an amazing teacher, and she continues.
It's brilliant. So how could people find out more about Reiki for animals then?
So absolutely, people can look up the teacher that I was talking about. I'll put that in the comments below, because she writes really beautifully, Kathleen Prasad. But I do have couple of slots left on my dog specific Reiki course coming up. I've got a course starting. It's actually 2 weeks today, so I can put the link in the comments after the video goes up. It's basically an 8-week online class, and I did my first one with you guys, Colin, last year. You were my test Reiki dummies, because I'd never taught Reiki online before last year. And actually, I'm a major convert to teaching Reiki online. The depth that you can get into is just amazing. Traditionally, Reiki's taught in 2 days, really intensive 2 days. And they are beautiful in themselves. And it's an experience to have for definite if you're interested. But it's quite exhausting. And then you get on with life. Where what I love about this 8-week course is that each week I can give you little mini homeworks to practice in your own home with your own dogs. And yeah, we had a good time, didn't we, last year when we did that?
I really recommend your course to anyone who's interested in Reiki and dog listening, I would add, because you mix the two really well.
I do get a lot of crossover in terms of customers. Many of my dog listening customers have then become Reiki customers and vice versa. Yeah, so glorious.
Thank you.
Thank you, Colin.
Pleasure. I'm just checking through any questions on the notification about the session or on today's session. So I don't see any. So if people do have questions, I imagine that they can attach them to this live recording when it goes out, and
yeah, sure, I'll keep an eye on it. If anyone's got any comments or questions, I'll keep an eye on it.
Brilliant. Okay, so I'll say cheerio, and I'll say thank you very much to you, Ali, for
thanks, Colin. That was a joy.
Yeah, it's really good. Always interesting listening to you, so thank you. Cheerio then. Bye.
Bye. Thanks a lot.